And on this episode of Low Earth Orbit, we're going to review Hitman GO. So this is a game that's a spin-off of an existing series of games that are console games, actually. And they're third-person stealth games that have come out since, I think, 2000 or so,
yeah, something like that.
by IO Interactive.
Yep.
And this is a sort of spin-off of those that's not a third-person stealth action game.
It's the least third-person stealth action game that's ever existed.
Yeah, it's actually a faux board game in a faux diorama style. Which is, I mean, I'm sure in the video version we're going to be cut to some amazing clip that explains this, much better than I can here. But
we're going to cut to a faux clip.
Yes, exactly. Probably being handballed by me, actually. But if you're listening on the podcast, you'll just have to sort of imagine it. So it's it's a very sort of unique visual style, and
like tilt shift kind of thing.
Yeah. And so the idea, but the goal of the game is still the same. So you kind of sneak through these different scenes, like mansions and gardens and things. And you can either assassinate guards on your way through, or, you're not assassinating them, but
knock them over.
Yeah. Or you can try and sort of sneak past them on your way to actually assassinate your real target, to the end of this. And it kind of, there's almost like a sort of long series of individual scenes that you work through on each level till you get to the boss level, I guess, where you kill your actual target. And I guess that sort of sums it up. Yeah. So
iOS.
Yeah. Very good point. So yes,
iPhone and iPad.
It's for iPhone and iPad. Yeah, and there's an Android version coming soon.
Yep.
I think that covers it. So Scott, what do you think?
This is a really cool game. I was surprised. I've never played the other original Hitman games because it just didn't look like my thing. Not really like a mafia game kind of person. But this is such a unique, interesting take on everything that I was kind of taken by it. I mean, it's obviously gorgeous. I mean, it's the art style that they chose and the rendering they chose was really, really very unique and very appealing. And the rendering of the little characters is great, and the sound design is really cool. It really sounds like little board pieces on there, and there's some things like trapdoors that sound really awesome when you go through them. And it's actually fairly challenging. I kind of expected it to be more cause it looks like kind of a more casual game. I was expecting it to be kind of aimed at a broader audience, but at least for me, some of the boards I had to try quite a while to get through. Although they actually give you these little things where you can, if you're getting really stuck, you can use phone a friend, basically. Is
that what the light bulb thing was?
Yes.
I could not figure out what that thing was. I kept tapping it and nothing ever happened. And I was like, wait, whatever.
Yeah, it was tricky. If you tap it, eventually it sort of opens a little sub menu, and then you can choose, I think, exactly what kind of hint you want.
Yeah.
So you can get the hint that will show you the way to do it in the fewest moves. You can get a hint that will show you a way to do it without killing anybody. There's a couple different flavors.
Yeah. You have to hit it multiple times.
Well, you can't do it super early on.
The target's very fiddly.
Yeah.
I think it's just buggy.
Okay.
Well, you could. I don't think you can use it in the first 3 levels. I think you have to wait until further. Anyway, I don't know. Yeah. So I did use that a couple times just to kind of see how it worked. But it's cool because you can go through a level and then if you you can pass the level but not get all the possible things to do. So it's briefcases to pick up, or you can try to do a no kill or fewest number of moves, that kind of thing. So it's just super polished.
However, just cut you off.
Yes.
I have to commend, you said fewest number of moves, which is great. The game, however, does not say fewest. It says 22 basically. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
It says 22 moves or less.
Yeah, or fewer.
It's really,
you don't have a pile of moves? A cup of moves?
Exactly. It's a volumetric measurement.
One cup of moves, please.
So there's definitely replayability in there, and there's a fair amount of strategy and challenge. I was really surprised. The only complaint really is that it's very sparse. There's not really any kind of story or anything, which I think is going to factor into your review. And it's very plain, but I think that's an intentional decision. I think they're trying to, in my mind, I've got this alternate reality version where somebody actually has this board game, and it comes with these very few but extremely expensive pieces. The little guy costs $280, and your grandfather takes down, dusts it off and puts it down. So I think maybe they could have dialed up the variety of things to look at a little bit. But at the same time, I kind of like it as a stylistic choice. So it separates itself from everything else. And there is the other sort of thing that's noteworthy here is I think there is sort of an element of the threes kind of gameplay, which is that you're trying to think ahead so many moves and figure out, where is everything going to be so many moves in? So I think for sure I'm going to keep playing it. and I'm not sure who to recommend it to, I guess, because there seems like to be a very specific type of player, but I mean, I enjoyed it. So,
what do you think, Justin?
Yeah, I think Scott basically said everything I was going to say, but no, I love the aesthetic of it, and that they really ran with the whole board game sort of concept, and really, didn't try to break out of it by like having you control the character in any way other than just sliding around. And I think that on some level, the Hitman thing is just the window dressing, and it, like at its core, is just a really good iOS puzzle game.
Yeah.
And it happens to be set in sort of the Hitman universe, and it's kind of got that thing going for it, and it has this really unique visual style. But I think you could strip away a lot of that stuff, and I think the game would still actually be pretty fun, which is that you have your little pieces you're moving, and all the other pieces are moving around, and there's a couple of rules about how they move, and you have to get from point A to point B. No, I think it was good, and I think I would recommend it to pretty much anybody who likes the puzzle genre of games.
I have to call out that there is technically not an aquarium, but there is a pool without walls, as in the Monument Valley. You remember the fish tank conversation we had?
You love fish tanks without sides.
Yeah, and I blew Steve's mind because he thought this existed. Do you remember that?
Yeah, I remember.
Okay. So there's a pool.
It's like the transparent aluminum moment.
Yes, exactly. Yes. Yeah. So that's in here. That probably factored in my review.
Nice.
I'm still haven't gotten to that.
It's like the third level, or somewhere in the first 10 for sure. Where the woman's swimming.
You probably played.
Okay. I thought I was mentioning something more grand and Monument Valley.
No. It's just on the side.
Okay. Yeah.
So I've known Steve long enough. I can already tell what his review is going to be. But go ahead.
What do you think my review is going to be?
Well, I'm not going to say what the whole review is, but I think the lack of story is going to be a major factor.
Yeah, I feel like it was a missed opportunity here. I mean, it's set in this universe in which the previous games all have stories. Not that I've played them, but I read the Wikipedia page, which, by the way, they say that he's a clone. But then if you actually read the backstory, far enough, and you should go like this character description section of the Wikipedia page, it says that he was created from the DNA of like the 5 greatest criminals in the world. And then
he's not a clone.
He's not a clone of any of them. He's not at all. I'm like, well, maybe there are multiple of him. Nope, there's just one. No clones involved.
He's not really a clone. He's just genetically engineered.
Yeah,
right. Which is not the same thing.
Exactly, but
apparently the writers didn't know that.
Yeah, so that was disappointing. But I mean, there's this whole backstory. Like all these, every single previous game has all these characters and these Bible crosses and kidnappings and all this stuff. And this, he learns who he is and who created him and all this. It seems sort of rich, fertile ground. And they bothered to set it in this universe, and they didn't include any of that.
I think part of that was part of the board game aesthetic. Monopoly doesn't have a plot. Unless you think like the shoe and the wheelbarrow have like some feud that they're going to resolve on the field of battle of Monopoly.
But some board games can have plots. There's...
But you give it a plot by playing it, kind of, right? You know what I mean? That's kind of the charm of the board game.
What's an example?
Yeah.
Like The Man from U.N.C.L.E. This is a really cheesy board game from the 1970s. There is they adapted it to a board game that actually has a story that progresses, through.
Is it the same every time?
I think so. It's kind of like a one-shot thing, but I don't. I mean, for regular board games, that's probably a bad idea. But for a fake board game that's in a iOS game that I'm only gonna play one time through anyway, you could make it work,
Yeah, you probably could.
Man from U.N.C.L.E. A classic board game. Come on, kids, gather around. We're gonna play The Man from U.N.C.L.E.
I had a really poor selection of board games to choose from now. I'm sure there's other examples that are actually awesome.
Can we find this? We need to have this board game.
It's like the next episode is going to be The Man from U.N.C.L.E.
We're changing it up this time. The Man from U.N.C.L.E. board game. That's awesome. Sorry, go ahead. Yes,
Man from U.N.C.L.E.
So you're saying some board games have stories?
Yeah, and I'm sure there's good ones out there, but again, this is the opportunity to go beyond the board game. You could use the board game shtick, but you could sort of.
I know what you're saying.
And particularly since they put it in this universe that it was all about the story,
But what do you think? What do you think about the production, the graphics and the sound design and all that kind of stuff? How do you feel about that?
I liked them. I feel like if I hadn't just recently played Monument Valley, I would have been more impressed. Monument Valley was this another level beyond in terms of just delightful, serene, and very similar kind of. The mechanics are different, but it's still a series of levels, and none of them are particularly hard. Some take a little bit longer in this game, in this version to kind of figure out. But that was still so charming.
Yeah.
And then I played this game, and it sort of feels like the same kind of I'd play it in the same situations, and it's kind of a similar unique visual style. And just I think by virtue of having them back to back, I was less enamored with this one than I might have been just had we played it sort of, in a vacuum.
Yeah, I think, I don't think this is better than Monument Valley, but I do think it's a different mood, which is
absolutely.
to change it up a little bit, like a little bit more Batman.
I think the mood could have, like...
If Batman killed people, I guess.
I think it would have been better with more, shades of, James Bond. Like, if the music, or, in the way that Device 6, had
This is what I wanted for Device 6.
Really?
Yeah, I would have loved this if this was Device 6.
It could be cool. I can imagine, really quirky, rooms and settings. Yeah. Like, what is this weird, mansion? What's going on in here? It could be... If it had a little bit of creepiness to it, I think it actually could have been, really cool.
Yeah,
but as it was, it was a interesting visual style, but I wasn't particularly taken with it. Mm-hmm. It's like, it's well executed, version of this vision, but
the concept.
I don't really care about the this concept. Like it just didn't do anything for me really. So it was very masterfully done, but it's not really my thing.
Okay.
So I was entertained by the game.
Would you recommend it to people?
If you like this kind of game, if you're into casual puzzle games, I think sure. And for me, I played it for an hour, and that was enough. I really don't have any desire to ever play it again.
Glowing reviews.
But I think if you really like puzzle games and stuff, which I don't usually tend to play all that much. I think people might like it a lot.
Okay.
So I guess sort of thumbs up.
Yes-ish. 2.5. Yeah. 2.5 yeses. Okay.
But yeah. Do we have anything else? There's no spoilers.
There's not really. Yeah,
there's no plot to be spoiled.
How does Monopoly end? Yeah, it's a board game, but yeah.
So, did you guys poke around at any the in-app purchases and stuff that you can do?
I didn't actually see any offered to me.
You can see them in the App Store. What were you gonna say?
I finished the first level or collection of levels or whatever it is.
You got to the plane, right?
And I got to the next one. It said, please complete one more something or pay now.
Okay.
I was like, really?
Yeah.
Automatically my opinion dropped a little bit because of that. Really you're going to make me pay to get out of whatever, because I didn't do a good enough job on the first box or something like that, one more achievement or one more something.
One more stamp or whatever.
Yeah.
Would you rather be locked out or not which one do you want? Always be able to go advance forward or
always have to pay?
Because traditionally in a game like this, you would have to unlock it.
Either every level you should pay for, or you should just have to beat the level to go to the next one.
Okay, there shouldn't be a requirement for beat the level or
pay
to a certain
money.
Degree of.
Yeah, I don't know. It feels sleazy to me. If we know you're a crappy player, but you can pay us some money, and then all your friends will think that you beat this level. I don't know. It just seems I always have a hard time with that, and I know that's a common trope these days, but I'm not a fan.
Yeah, it's not. I don't know. It doesn't turn me off too much. I know that some games are worse offenders than others at this. I think Candy Crush is the example right now of the horribly unethical levels of in-app purchase. But I think this was okay because this is actually pretty similar, I think, to the in-app purchase that's in Asphalt, which is another game that I've been playing lately. And it's kind of the same thing where each race you can get 3 stars, 5 stars. There's a certain number of stars you could basically get for each race, and you get them for different things. Maybe you came in first, or maybe you did a certain number of tricks, or maybe you did it under a certain time, or whatever. And to unlock new seasons or whatever, you have to get a certain number of stars, and then or you can just cough up the cash and unlock all the seasons all at once, right? So it's okay, I like the game enough that I don't mind going back and replaying some of the races to rack up enough stars. And the same thing happened to me with this game too, which is that I got to the whole first box and I only had 23 out of 25
I had the exact same number.
Stamps or whatever, right? So I just went back and replayed 2 levels.
Yeah,
and there was one level where you literally couldn't get all 3 at once because one of the stamps was, did you kill more than one person at once? And the other stamp was, did you kill nobody? And it's you have to play that level twice to get all 3 stamps, right? So it's we played that one again and did the other thing. And so, just go back and play a couple extra ones. So I didn't find it wildly offensive. So
I didn't know
it's hard for me to complain about it. I think the other thing you can buy is more hints. So you didn't get the hints.
I couldn't get them. I tried tapping on the thing and just nothing happened. So,
but I think you only get so many because I used one and the little badge went from 5 to 4. Yep. And so I think if you run out, you can pay for more hints. I think it's another way that they.
Yeah, So I guess all things being equal, I'd rather just buy the game and be done with it. But given the fact that I appreciate the fact that it didn't pop up and say, hey, you should buy something. It's I just saw it was locked. I went back and played more, and then I continued on. So like I just it didn't assault it with me or assault me with it.
Because you didn't try tapping on it. You saw right away.
I saw it was locked.
That it was 23 out of whatever, so you went back and played more.
Yeah. So I wasn't. Yeah. All things being equal, yes, it'd be better just to flat out buy it. But
so what was it, like $5 to buy the game?
It was $5, yeah.
And then
what was the in-app purchase cost?
Well, it didn't limit the price. It just said, get one more whatever achievement, or keep somehow like keep playing or not keep playing, but there was some sort of like
cancel,
button
basically,
which is basically like push this and then immediately ask for my password.
Oh.
So I was like, is it going to tell me the price before I it charges me?
They may not be allowed to do that. I think they had to show you the price before they.
But it was weird. It was like either go back and the previous box or some button. I forget what it was to the next one.
They probably tried to restore a purchase before they even.
Some
apps do that before they try to restore, and then they fail to restore, then they actually.
That makes sense. Although
confusing,
but it is confusing because you get scared. You're like, wait, what's gonna happen if I push enter? What happens? Like, yeah.
What did you think of soundtrack, by the way?
That was okay.
Really, I really liked it.
Yeah,
okay.
I don't know. I mean, given that it was this like sort of spy genre, that I expected something more. Yeah, I guess, and it I don't know. It was okay. I didn't hate it, but it didn't elevate the experience like I hoped maybe it would.
It probably would maybe make more sense if any of us had actually played the original Hitman games, because I don't think that any of us really understand like what the genre is. Like I haven't played the games, but I actually saw like the Hitman movie that came out a while ago. Not a great movie. I'm not sure I would recommend anyone to like run out and go see it.
Are there any movies made from video games that have ever been good?
Well, Last of Us is coming out.
Really?
Yep, and it's by the same writers that did the game.
Okay.
And the major debate is it going to be Ellen Page playing Ellie.
Yeah, that'd be awkward, wouldn't it? Yeah.
But I forget who the actor was. Oh, the voice actor from Last of Us. Somebody was interviewing him, and they asked him about the concerns about, is this really going to work taking a game to a movie? He's like, they know what they're doing. Trust them. Like, in other words, the writer, because
every other person that's come before, they've all failed. Perfect failure rate.
No.
But these guys.
Well, but here's the thing. Last of Us is actually well written. That's the difference. Usually.
Yeah, but I wonder if like the translation from one to the other, like something will.
That's possible.
Lost, right?
That's possible. Like, but I mean, at this point, I give them the benefit of the doubt because they have such a great record for.
Because lots of really well written books wind up being horrible movies.
Yeah, fair
enough.
Yeah, we'll see what happens. I don't know. But I don't think there has been. Tomb Raider was not good. No. I really can't think of anything.
Mortal Kombat? No, nobody just loves some Mortal Kombat movie. What about Super Mario Brothers?
Wasn't Doom one? Yeah.
Oh, Doom. I've seen that one too.
Have you really? Yeah. I don't think there have been any. Yeah. No, I really can't think of even a single one.
So anyway, but I've seen the Hitman movie, and the impression I got was that it was not so much mafia, like you said, as much as it is like sort of weird dystopian sci-fi.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah, totally. Like it's like a far future sort of like setting. Yeah.
Is that what the game is? Is the game like the third? It's far future.
I think so. That's why it's a barcode tattoo on the back of his neck, and like that's like all
cool
stuff.
Because in the board in Go, like they just have normal clothes and like.
Well, it's not. I guess it's not like that far, but far enough where you can realistically genetically engineer like a super criminal.
Like 2030s or 2040s or something.
I don't know.
Throw it 30 years in the future and
far enough.
It's possible.
Yeah, totally right. But yeah, I don't think it's supposed to be like a like mafia sort of like whatever. It's more like a science fiction sort of thing.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Wow.
But maybe the soundtrack, doesn't. It's deliberately not reflecting like a 60s era Bond because that's not the flavor of plot that Hitman typically has. It's supposed to be more of like a. But then you've got this weird board game element to it too, where they probably don't want to be too heavy with the soundtrack because it's like a casual game.
Yeah, it is. I wonder if it would have been helpful. Again, like Device 6, to have some sort of intro sequence to set the tone for it all. Because there was nothing. And I was like, sort of dumps you in, and I'm like, what is going on? Like, there's this weird like diorama thing. Like, how do I move anyone? Like, I don't even know what's going on. Like, what is the point of this game? Like, I figured it out.
Yeah.
But it was, there's just absolutely nothing. There's no setup whatsoever.
Right. I think they actually just barely pulled this off, which is like not have a tutorial at all.
Yeah.
I think they were very close to not pulling it off. Like if it had been just a little worse, it would have been like a total non-starter. They just skated over the line on this one and be able to get away with no tutorial because the first couple levels are like just obvious enough that you can't screw up too badly, basically.
But it's so weird because you do them and they're like, is this all there's this game? This is like really not fun. And I also have no idea what I just did, really.
Right.
But okay.
Yeah.
The one thing I would say, I think that actually would dramatically, at least for me, dramatically improve the experience is if there was a more sort of one-to-one movement of, like, if you dragged the guy, like he picked up off the board.
You
dropped him. Because initially I thought I was doing it wrong, and I was like, oh, it's not catching my tap.
Yeah, I did the same thing.
But then it's just a gesture, and it's
if you just tap where you wanted to go, it doesn't have work.
Yeah,
either.
I know.
Like the two things that seemed like the obvious ways to send him didn't work.
Yeah, so it walks up to the door, and like it does everything else in terms of the tactile experience.
Right.
So it walks up to the door to just totally selling that idea. And it kind of forgets the last part, which is maybe the easiest part, which is just like
direct manipulation.
Yeah, or even tapping. Tapping would be fine even. Yeah. But it feels like it's like there's like an invisible box around him. So you're like trying to drag, and it's like boop, boop, nothing happens. Then you drag out, still nothing's happening. You let go, and then he goes all the way. So it seemed maybe they can fix that because that's such a small thing, and I think that would really like sell the board game thing. It really keep your suspension of disbelief going.
I don't know. Maybe they ran out of time.
Yep.
Well, you can always ship updates. So I guess we mostly thumbs up on it.
Yeah.
I think so.
So particularly if you like, casual puzzle style games.
Yeah.
Or maybe if you're a fan of the previous series.
I think
that's tough.
I think you might get something out of it just because. So the thing I was left with is sort of this feeling of it's a little bit of a tongue-in-cheek thing. Like the other one's a very violent game, and the idea of like transforming this into a board game where you just knock people over.
It's totally bloodless.
Yeah, there's sort of a little bit of a like underlying joke to that. So you might, if you are a fan of those games, you might kind of appreciate that. But yeah, it is a very different game. But
the genre is not the same at all. So if you're expecting the Hitman games on your phone, this is not what you're going to get.
Have you played the games?
No.
Okay.
I played Splinter Cell, which I think is maybe the gameplay is similar. I mean, obviously the plot's very different, but I think the gameplay is a little bit the same, where it's like the sneaking, sort of stealthy.
Yeah,
bit.
I'm actually kind of curious to at least check out a video or something of it now, because I always had the impression that it was sort of a.
Maybe we can cut in some video from the actual game right now.
Magic of editing.
Right here. But I always sort of got the impression it was sort of like a B grade, like over the top, like not clever at all. And this, even if you don't necessarily like the game, there are elements of cleverness here. And I'm kind of curious if that made, if that's an ongoing thing in the series. Like, does it have that feeling of like it's a really high class mansion and this mood thing? I don't know. I never expected that to be part of the other games, but now I'm kind of curious. Yeah. So I bet they're super cheap now.
Maybe this is the whole ploy.
Yeah,
all you people who never played Hitman, come play Hitman.
We're a board game.
We're so trendy with our tilt shift board game. You'll love Hitman.
And somebody's like, "Oh, this puzzle game's great." It's like, "Oh my god, what's going on? I blew up his head."
What do you do with the piano wire?
No. Back to the board game. By the way, did you guys play an iPad or iPhone? I played an iPad.
iPhone.
Wait, what?
So you two played an iPad.
Okay.
I played an iPhone.
How did you feel the size was? Because for me, I'm glad I played an iPad.
I think it was okay. I think the camera was mostly intelligent, and you can also just grab anywhere on the board and move it around. There were a few times where I think as you would move through the level, the camera would like sort of auto move to like try and give you the best angle,
like with the boss
you're in. Yeah, and some of those I think hurt more than helped.
Okay.
And I thought too. I was like, I wonder if the camera would do this much moving around if I was on an iPad where they would just have a bigger screen. But it sounds like it did basically the same thing.
So there were only two places in the entire first box that did it for me on the iPad version.
Oh, really? Which places were those?
The tennis player and the boss.
Yeah. Oh, no. So it happened more often for me, which is where like you would reach a certain point on the board and the camera would like pretty dramatically change angles to like try and illuminate whatever it is that you're doing.
How many times? Like 10 times? Or
no, I mean maybe 3 or 4 times.
Okay,
so not a ton.
Probably the same,
but more than 0 or So I don't know. So there were a few times where I felt like I couldn't see the whole board, and then the reason why it was frustrating is because I actually wanted to go back to an area which was now out of view, and there were bad guys back there, and so I couldn't actually time correctly when to go back because I couldn't see like that whole part of the board basically. So that was kind of frustrating. But overall, I didn't find it to be a huge problem.
By the way, it's another example of Unity taking over the world.
Another Unity game. I know.
Yeah.
It's incredible.
Yeah.
Monument Valley was.
And from such a big studio, too. It's not like they don't have the manpower to create their own engine.
Yeah.
Doesn't seem to have hurt anything.
No. It's just fascinating because they've come. It seems like practically overnight. They've just taken over the game.
It seems like they flew out of nowhere. Like who is backing them, or were they just some guys in a garage who happened to hit it big, or they like?
Well, I remember seeing demos years and years ago about like they had this idea about you write the game once and it deploys on these platforms. Everyone's like, okay, we know how that goes.
We've heard that story.
And it seems like they just iterated it on long enough that it actually worked itself out. You know.
Yeah, I watched some tutorial videos for like how to actually use Unity.
Yeah,
there's some really clever stuff in there.
Yeah.
Like it's actually
talking about the lighting thing, right?
Yeah, the lighting thing is so cool. They've got this thing. What did I call them?
I don't remember. I want to say light mesh,
light probes.
Probes, yes.
Light probes, right? So like when you're creating, I guess your game, you're gonna have tons of lights to actually light the scene, but most of them aren't actually going to change over the course of gameplay. So you can just sort of pre-calculate everything and bake them into the textures themselves. But that doesn't work for basically like the game characters because they have to move the environment. So they kind of by definition can't have all the lighting baked on them. But if you have hundreds of lights, like you obviously can't do that in real time. So what they do basically is that you can put down, or I think possibly the editor can like determine for you the optimal points to put like these little sort of sensors. And when it goes to bake all the lighting, it sort of records the lighting at each of those points, which are fairly sparse. And then as the character goes through the level, it just sort of averages between the closest light probes. And so you kind of get almost the effect of this dynamic lighting with hundreds of lights, but without having to pay the performance penalty. I'm like, that's so clever. And like multiply that by like a bunch of like, oh, that's so clever sort of moments through it. And it actually does seem like a really neat product. So I can see why people are enthusiastic about it.
And plus being able to just deploy to multiple platforms is pretty huge.
Yeah.
Cool. This episode brought to you by Unity.
Unity. When you want to make a game.
You can PayPal our feed. Feedback at Low Earth Orbit.
Yeah, well, next time we come with Unity shirts. Well, this episode's on Unity.
So, yes. What do we do now?
You can send us email and all sorts of things.
Leave us feedback.
You can send us all sorts of emails and tweets. And why don't you tell them some of the ways they could do that?
All right. So you can send your feedback to feedback@lowearthorbit.fm. You can find us on Twitter at lowearthshow. Find us on Twitter at lowearthshow.
Yep.
And you can find the show notes at our website, lowearthorbit.fm.
That's right.
And our YouTube channel.
I've had another one. I barely mastered these three.
Should we just do it all again from the top? Or we can keep all this?
We're gonna ride with it. But you should. But why don't you formally mention the YouTube page?
Yes. So we have a YouTube page now. What is the URL?
YouTube.com/ what would you say? Low Earth Shore or whatever. It's youtube.com/Low Earth Show.
So you can find it at youtube.com/Low Earth Show. All of our video episodes.
Yes.
They're also on our regular website as well.
Such as the Stanley Parable, which would be good to watch before the next section. But do you know what the current count is? Last time I checked, it was 9 for the subscriber count.
Ooh.
I think it's
okay. Well, as far as we know, as of this recording, it's 9, which means that
it's like double from my last song, which was like 4.
So far nobody is putting a 10 on their shirt or whatever.
Double digits.
Whatever. Yeah,
we're almost there.
We're close.
You could be the one.
You could be the one. No pressure. You. Anyway. Yep.
All right. Should I do that again, or are we just gonna go on?
We're just gonna ride with that. I think it's more fun that way.
Need to make
on this side
sim podcaster. You know, like you have all these cameras and they all like
you start in a garage and then a slightly bigger garage.
And then you try to like get all your cameras to line up and not be in each other's ways and figure out like, the microphones all aligned, and every episode you gain another camera, so you have to like there's less and less space to fit them all in.
Oh my god.
72 cameras! It's mathematically impossible to place them all! I can never beat this level!
Yes.
Which would actually be much more adorable.
Oh, it would be adorable. I'm gonna need a list of jobs, by the way, for Pretzel. We already used sous chef and...
Does he put it in the credits?
Yeah.
He can be best boy.
Best
Key grip.
Key grip!
I thought
yes!
that was so... I wasn't sure if it was too on the nose. Like, what I'm aiming for is like the most interesting dog in the world.
It's so true. I'm trying to go through all those different things. Right. Key group is perfect because it's like let me know what the key group actually does. Stay where you are. Don't breathe. Just trying to stay here in the.
This week on Low Earth Orbit, we review Hitman GO. All right.
Sounds like a grammar book.
I know.
It sounds weird, but I don't know why.
I want to say Hitman because it looks like Hitman.
Mr. Hitman.
But yeah,
it's Hitman GO. Yeah.
I don't. But it sounds terrible. Hitman GO. Let's actually comments in there.
Yeah, it
like,
does.
Hitman
Yeah.
GO.
On this episode of Low Earth Orbit, we review Hitman GO.
That sounds great. It was great. It was great. It was great. It sounded funny, but not because of how you said it.
Right.
So if you haven't played the Stanley Parable,
Stop. Listen to a different episode first, and then come back to listen to the last half of this.
yes, and play Stanley Parable, all through all the endings.
Exactly.
That made sense to everybody, right? I don't know what you came to look at.
We can draw a diagram.
Okay.
I'm very good at that, apparently.